Is Undyne's true identity Pope Francis, leader of the Catholic Church? How could I have been so blind? All the proof points to yes! Evidence the first, similar hats. Long pointed hat, long pointed hat. Boom! Evidence the second, Undyne's spear is obviously a direct parallel to the Pope's shepherd staff. Evidence the third, Undyne is a fish-like monster and the Catholic Church is all about those loaves and fishes. They don't call those bumper decorations Jesus fish for nothing. And Undyne the Undying is clearly a reference to the immortality bestowed upon us in heaven. So there you have it, Undyne is the Pope. But hey, that's just a theory. A half-baked theory. Hey, at least it's better than Sans' Ness, right? Hello, Internet. Welcome to Game Theory, where first of all, let's just set the record straight. I liked the Sans' Ness episode a lot. That's the one where Game Theory jumped the shark. No, it isn't! No, it isn't! Whether or not you agree with the conclusion, you have to admit, there's a lot of evidence there that just lines up really nicely. Just saying. So anyway, I literally just flew back from Rome, and boy, are my arms tired. Okay, but seriously, about a month ago, I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to represent YouTube in the good old US of A in an interview with Pope Francis. The first time ever the leader of the Catholic Church has been interviewed by YouTubers. You might say that I was #blessed to be a part of it. No? Come on, that's like the most legitimate usage of that hashtag ever. Basically, the Pope has to meet with YouTubers from around the world not to talk about being Catholic or anything religious, but to talk about how the internet can bring people together. Not the Tinder style bring people together, just the, hey, we're from different walks of life, but we're all humans at heart kind of bringing people together. And in the process, I was brought together with George Clooney. The George Clooney. See, this is me talking, and that is George Clooney. Same row and seat as mine, only mirrored across the vertical axis. There he is, listening intently to everything I'm saying, enraptured by every word coming out of my mouth. I mean, sure, he might just look like a blurry speck in this picture, but you'll have to take my word for it. He was enthralled. We're practically BFFs now.
People, let me tell you about my best friend.
OTP, Georgie. But enough about my new bae. In preparation for the event, they told us it was customary to bring the Pope a gift and encouraged us to bring something representative of our home country's culture. And don't get me wrong, while I would have loved to have presented the Pope with an oversized hamburger, a cowboy hat, and a bald eagle carrying a machine gun, let's be honest, the guy knows about the United States. When I showed up waving the old stars and stripes, it's not like the Pope would have suddenly fallen out of his Pope chair all, what is this country I've never heard of? To me, if I was going to be a representative of any culture, it was going to be of this culture, the internet culture, and more specifically of gamers. Because our voice has so rarely gotten represented offline, and when we are discussed, it's always in the negative. Gamers as killers, gamers attacking women, gamers putting up with Jimmy Kimmel. And that's why, as my gift to the Pope, I gave him a copy of Undertale. Because regardless of how you feel about this game, Undertale represents an evolution for gamers and what they expect from the games that they play, making it the single best representative of where we are as a community today. Well, that, and because I thought FNAF 3's tale of child murder might not be the best foot forward when meeting a world leader. But in all seriousness, considering the tragic circumstances around both Christina Grimmie and Orlando, it's an even more important topic now than it was just a few weeks ago, and I feel it merits making a video. So this is the story of why I gave the Pope Undertale, and why this is such an important symbolic gesture for all of us gamers. For us, it's easy to think about the gaming community as being super diverse, spanning a range of genres from the retro gamers to the achievement hunters, casuals to pro gamers, to game-specific types like the FIFA tubers and the Minecrafters. We know that this game is not and should never be confused with this game under penalty of death. We know that there are gaming music groups, gaming comedy channels, gaming educational channels, gaming reviewers, gaming news outlets, and gaming personalities. But to the outside world, it's all just one thing: gamer. From the COD player to the Mario Maker. And honestly, that's not entirely their fault. The way people perceive gamers goes pretty far back. No, like really far back, to the days before video games even existed. Oh yeah, back to the dawn of time. Well, at least back to the way our brains evolved. When we talk about the identity of a gamer, and really the identity of any group of people, we're dealing with the social anthropological principle of outgroup homogeneity bias. Basically, the human tendency to believe that people from an outside group are more similar than the people in your in-group. In simpler terms, it's the idea that we generalize or stereotype groups of people that we're not familiar with. It applies across races, genders, religions, sexual orientations, and even petty stuff too, like gamers versus jocks. Guys who play sports are just a bunch of stupid meatheads. Oh yeah, well bro, nerds are so socially awkward. That has been Theater with MatPat. Thank you. Even though my nerdy may revolve around advanced Dungeons and Dragons Thaco and encyclopedic knowledge of Star Trek Enterprise deck layouts, to the outside world unfamiliar with those things, I could be grouped together with weeaboos, bronies, and Whovians. Sounds like a party from hell. And we all know the differences between those classifications because by and large, these are all part of our in-group of nerd internet culture. But to the out-groups, a Picard Trekkie looks exactly the same as a Shatner Trekkie. Outgroup homogeneity bias is a large reason why stereotypes exist, and a big reason why everyone hates America, and why America hates the rest of the world. But why? Why would we as humans do this? Well, a prevailing anthropological theory, states that this is all related to the preservation of our identity. Each and every one of us is a complicated collection of likes, dislikes, fears, experiences, and beliefs. It's hard to boil down to the core what makes you, you. So instead, we define ourselves not by what we are, but what we are not. We are not them. We draw a clear black and white line. This is who I am, and I would never be one of those sorts of people. And that is the first reason I gave the Pope a Steam code for Undertale. For as ridiculous as that sounds, it's a game determined to get gamers to fight out-group homogeneity bias. So determined, in fact, that it's the central premise of the game. Humans versus monsters. Us versus them. In any other game, monsters are just monsters. Just fodder for XP grinding with stats and visual design swap between encounters. They don't look like our team of mages and knights, so let's slash our way through them. But monsters in Undertale aren't some homogenous group who look, think, and act the same way. Toby Fox specifically stated that he wanted each enemy to have its own personality. They go from being grunts, underlings, and bosses to Temmie, Sans, Mettaton, Frogget, and Goat Mom. Individuals with names, hopes, fears, insecurities, existing beyond just a simple label of monster. In fact, that's one of the most subtle and ingenious design decisions that Toby Fox included in this game. Even though a group of characters is classified as monsters in this game, there's only one true monster by the end of the game. You. At the end of a genocide run, someone who didn't take the time to understand, listen to, interact with, and show mercy to a group of individuals. But it goes even deeper than all this. Humans are almost destined to hate each other, and the root of it all comes from humans being lazy. Seriously, that's not a judgment call, it's a biological fact. The human brain is just a lazy organ that craves efficiency, so it tends to oversimplify complex situations using what are known as heuristics. A heuristic is a simple rule, often learned through evolution, that helps the brain deal with difficult situations when it doesn't have enough information to decide. For instance, a serious one that we in the West deal with a lot is Muslims are terrorists. Obviously, there are literally billions of Muslims who are not terrorists, and a large number of non-Muslims who are. And yet, so many share this belief based on one such shorthand rule, the availability heuristic. When people make a judgment based on the number of examples that come to mind. Ask yourself the following question. Are there more words that start with the letter K or have K as the third letter? When tested, most people will say that there are more words with K as the first letter, but that can't be further from the truth. There are far more words with K as the third letter. But based on the availability heuristic, we're able to come up with more examples of K words and thus assume that there are just more words that start with the letter K. In this case, many have only ever heard about Muslims through news stories covering terrorism. And since those are the only examples that come to mind, as a result have concluded that it's a group of violent individuals. The outgroup of Muslim are all dangerous religious extremists, despite the fact that, statistically, this clearly isn't true. Same thing with all Texans are redneck and racist, all Democrats are socialist hippies, and all Republicans are gay-hating, gun-toting corporate sympathizers. Knowing all this, think back to the way most people hear about games, through the news or through marketing, and look back across the last decade of games where franchises like Grand Theft Auto and Assassin's Creed have been two of the biggest. Games with violent crimes right in their title. noodles. And of course, Call of Duty, a franchise that continues to top bestseller lists to this day, one that's synonymous with war and violence against outgroups. Based on the availability heuristic, these are the games that gamers are getting judged off of. This is why our community has gotten such a negative stereotype of spoiled, foul-mouthed kids who laugh over killing people. And I get it, it sounds stupid to say, oh, Grand Theft Auto has Grand Theft Auto in the title and it's crime, so people must judge us as violent killers. I get it, it sounds like I'm over-exaggerating. There's no way that this is all that people judge us off of. But if you think that, then look no further than game publishers themselves. I've spoken to rooms full of game developers and asked a number of people who knew of Five Nights at Freddy's.
I would hope that everyone in the audience is familiar with the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise.
To have only 5% of the room raise their hand. And these are people who work in video games, unaware of what is perhaps one of the largest, most popular games to have hit in the last 2 years. If they don't know the games that are shaping the industry, the games that we're passionate about, what hope does anyone else have? They'll just continue to learn about the negatives of games on the nightly news. Probably the next time that Mass Effect has a sex scene, or when Hatred 2 gets released, or when Jimmy Kimmel's numbers start to flag again. And that's the second reason I gave the Pope Undertale, because it's up to us to educate the world about the good works of gaming. We can't wait for other people to do it because no one will ever deliver those lessons for us. We are in charge of our own destiny. We shape our story. For years, we've complained about negative coverage in our own forums, but relatively few of us have taken those discussions out into the public space. And if we're going to do that, I don't care whether or not you like Undertale, it's what that game stands for that's important. It's a game that taught millions of people the meaning of the word pacifism, and that's no exaggeration. Look no further than global search trends on Google, where for the entire web, searches for the word pacifism and pacifist spike with the release of Undertale. For the first time in over a decade, millions of people are talking about peaceful resolutions to conflict because of video game. But I used Undertale as a figurehead, the most prominent example of the evolving social consciousness of gamers. The cry for games to have options for peaceful resolutions has really kicked off with a collective disappointment over Human Revolution's lackluster no-kill runs. And now it's been spreading to some of the most unlikely places, with examples like Kent Sheely's peaceful run of Modern Warfare, and Kyle Hinckley literally breaking Fallout 4 as he forced the game to preserve his pacifist run. And it's not just that we're playing Undertale, it's important to remember that we kickstarted Undertale, a game that pitched itself in its Kickstarter as a game about mercy and peaceful alternatives was something that gamers overfunded. We're actively endorsing games about communication and understanding at a time when the rest of the world is talking about actively building walls to hide out other groups of people. That is something that we gamers should be proud of. But lastly, I gave the Pope this game because it speaks his language. This year is his self-proclaimed Year of Mercy for the Catholic Church, a period celebrating forgiveness and compassion when one could otherwise choose to harm a person. And what's the recurring theme throughout Undertale? Mercy. From the most innocent victims to the most vile murderers. In fact, the whole YouTube interview was planned by an organization named Skolis, which brings young people from around the world together from different walks of life to share stories with each other and show that even though we're sometimes literally a world apart, we all still have the same human problems like bullying and intolerance. There are even some loyal theorists in the bunch. It was awesome. It's all in an attempt to break down that out-group bias, showing young leaders that at their core, people are people. But this sort of fight is hard. It's an uphill battle, and Undertale shows us that. Pacifism isn't the easiest route. It's much more challenging than just quickly hacking your way through a handful of enemies. Just like in the real world, putting in the effort to overcome heuristics is really difficult. I mean, look at this video. I'm sure there'll be a lot of people complaining in the comments that this isn't much of a theory or isn't about video games or claiming that I'm some social justice warrior, but I'm not. I just want us to start having a conversation because you know what? It's an essential discussion to have to help the world understand and respect people of different backgrounds. That includes us as gamers. More knowledge is rarely, if ever, a bad thing. It broadens our understanding of the world and allows us to empathize with outgroups it'd be far easier to write off as different, weird, or scary. But all in all, life is just too short to hate. At the end of the day, do I expect the Pope to be sitting in front of his Steam account, jumping into the shoes of Frisk, and then logging onto Tumblr to post about his love for Papyrus? No, of course not. The guy doesn't even have a computer. I intended me giving him a video game to be a symbolic gesture, because because I believe it's my responsibility in the position that you've given me to educate not just you guys every week with a video about quantum mechanics in Mario and psychology in Undertale, but also the non-gamers who are confused about what the video game community entails, who we are, and what we stand for. And there is no better game to showcase all the good of who we are as a community than Undertale. Good luck getting through that genocide run, Pope Francis. Sans is a doozy. But hey, that's just a theory. A gamer theory. Thank you guys for allowing me the opportunity to represent you. Real talk, admittedly today was a bit of a softer episode, but considering the events of the last couple weeks, I thought it was important to address. Anyway, looking forward, with E3 and VidCon behind us, it's time to get back to some harder-hitting theories on some new games that were announced, which I'm super excited about. So things like Sister Location, Zelda, and yeah, I'm also gonna go back to that long-awaited theory on Undertale. Those are all planned for the next couple of weeks, so big hype there. Now, returning for the fun of it, welcome back to the
Super Amazing End Card Tournament!
where today, I wanna know, completely unrelated to anything in today's episode, do you like salty snacks or do you like sweet snacks? Are you a potato chip, pretzel, popcorn person, or candies, cakes, cookies, and chocolate nerdy nummy? Clearly, I'm hungry and curious. So click on one to choose to get sent to the channel page where you should click on more things. Aight? Now enough with these feel-good, touchy-feely, emotional sort of episodes. What is this, Leave It to Beaver? An after-school special? Heck no. It's time we start getting dark. I'll see you guys next week.